friends, I'm Jill Wyoskowski, a librarian with Dearborn Heights City Libraries, and this is an episode of Altered Books. Altered Books is an in-person art program for adults that was meeting prior to the COVID-19 pandemic at Caroline Kennedy Library. In the meantime, we'll be sharing episodes via YouTube to help spark your creativity. Fun, nerdy disclaimer. I am not an artist, just a librarian, and I do not pretend my art or projects are even all that good, but it's still something I truly enjoy doing. With that said, no matter your skill level, we're here to be creative, alter books, and have fun. You may be wondering, what exactly is an altered book? An altered book is a form of mixed media art that changes a book from its original form into a new and different form, thus altering the book's appearance and/or meaning. In other words, the spirit of the program is to take an old, damaged, or unwanted book and upcycle it by giving it a new purpose, which in turn gives the book a new life. In this episode, I'll introduce an altered idea, weaving with fabrics and paper. Before the fun begins and we talk supplies, you'll need to do a little prep work on the book you're about to alter. For this project, I used a total of 10 pages to create a reinforced spread. I glued 4 pages together on each side. That took 8 pages. And then I kept 2 pages loose on top for the weaving. At the end, those 2 pages will be glued to their respective sides. If you're new to altered books or need a refresher, please take a few and watch the intro video, which covers book selection. The pre-project prep video lays out the removal and gluing of pages, a very necessary step before starting just about any altered books project. Here are the supplies you'll need to pull off this project. A hardcover book that's had all the necessary prep work completed. Ruler, pencil with a good eraser, X-Acto knife, glue. Mod Podge or a craft glue works just fine. And for weaving, there are loads of options, including ribbon, embroidery floss, yarn, colored paper strips. Remember those placemats you made as a kid? And fabric strips. You could even upcycle an old t-shirt for this project. Optional items. If you're wanting to add color to your pages, you may want to use some paint. If you want the text from your page to pop, consider using watercolors or a watered-down tempera. Last but not least, what about the ends of your strands? You could thread on some beads or charms to add another dimension to your project. Alright, the first step entails planning a pattern for your pages. For my project, I planned on doing a simple over-under vertical weave. In the spirit of keeping things simple, I drew a grid over the text block and originally planned to weave embroidery floss through every other column. However, keeping symmetry in mind, the 2-page spread looked off-kilter. So, in the middle of each page, I combined 3 columns, which gave some needed balance. There are many directions you can take this project, pun intended. Next up, it's time to make some cuts in the columns you plan on weaving. Because I had glued 4 pages together behind each spread, I didn't need to place anything behind the pages before making my cuts. Although, if you're nervous, tuck in an old magazine behind each page. Painting your page is completely optional. Watercolor or a watered-down tempera will allow text from your page to pop through, while acrylic will help cover text and grid lines. Just a heads up, you may need to do some tiny touch-up work near the cuts after you've completed the weaving. You'll notice some original page color popping in some of my pictures. The gray paint is something that I blended while at the library, and then I did the weaving while working from home. I know I'll be hard-pressed to match the colors, so the pages will have to be perfectly unperfect. Learn from my oversight. Ha! And now it's time to get weaving. Tip. To help you feed, I'm making air quotes there, what you're weaving into the page, try wrapping a teensy amount of Scotch tape around one end. Think of a shoelace. Take your time with this step. Even with the page painted, I found it easy to tear. If you make a tear, no worries. I certainly made a handful during this step. You can make repairs with a dab of glue on the reverse side of the page either now or during the next step. Trim the excess of your floss or ribbon or yarn, or leave it and then add charms. This is covered later in the video. Easiest step is here. It's time for glue. You can apply it to either the back side of your woven page or directly to the pages you glued together during your pre-project prep. This last step is optional. Rather than trimming any excess yarn, floss, or ribbon, you could thread on some beads or charms, or both. I used slip knots to help secure the charms, trim excess for neat ends, and bazinga, you've altered your book. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Altered Books. As always, we would love to see your projects, even if you're just getting started. Email your photos to dhreference@gmail.com or use the hashtag DHCLibraries on social media. Enjoyed what you saw here? Subscribe to Dearborn Heights Library channel on YouTube and be notified whenever there's a new episode. Before we wrap up, did you know that Dearborn Heights City Libraries are offering curbside pickup? You can request books, movies, music, magazines, and even video games via our website, dhcl.mishlibrary.org, by phone or email. After time to process your request, you'll be notified that your items are ready for pickup. Home delivery is also an option. I'm Jill Wyoskowski with Dearborn Heights City Libraries. Stay connected with us at dhcl.mishlibrary.org and on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now on Pinterest. Thanks for tuning in.